the Colorectal Cancer and Survivorship and Palliative Care Task Forces of the Colorado Cancer Coalition welcome you to the second in our Food Access and Built Environment webinar series. I want to start by thanking Sarah Roberts, Janice Hansen, Carlin Calloway, and Inka Deku, and our panelists for helping to plan today's webinar. Next slide, please. Perfect. This webinar series is helping to support the launch of the new Colorado Cancer Plan, and specifically Goal 2, which you can see here of the Cancer Plan, to increase prevalence of healthy behaviors. And today we'll be exploring food access in rural settings with our esteemed panelists from 3 prominent organizations that are leaders in our state. We'll introduce them shortly. Next slide, please. So today's objectives, you'll understand how food and nutrition impacts cancer prevention, survivorship, and management during treatment, understand the barriers for food access in rural Colorado, and identify solutions and resources to address food access barriers. Next slide, please. So to do a little bit of level setting, first off, what is food access? Or some may have heard it as food insecurity. This is generally when people do not have the resources to attain enough nutritious foods. And in 2019, according to Colorado Health Institute, 1 in 10 Coloradans did not have enough money to afford to buy the food that they needed. In our first webinar, there was also talk about food justice. And the food justice movement works to ensure universal food access to nutritious, affordable, and culturally appropriate food for all, while also advocating for the well-being and safety for those involved in food production process. And what do we mean when we're talking about rural? In what context? Well, it turns out that different agencies define rural differently, and it's often very ambiguous. For example, the US Census Bureau defines rural as what is not urban. This is directly from the website. And so without getting into the weeds, today I think we're talking about small towns around 2,500 people or less, which the Census Bureau actually considers something like small urban centers or something like that. But for our purposes today, I think that's the type of population that we're talking about. Next slide, please. And so today we'll hear from Astrid de la Cruz from Project Angel Heart, Brenda Kaiser from Safe and Abundant Food Nutrition Alliance, or SANA, who serve Pitkin Eagle and other counties, Karen Peck from Grand River Hospital, representing Meals on Wheels. And this will be facilitated by Inka Deku. But for now, I will turn it over to Astrid de la Cruz to talk about how nutrition impacts cancer prevention and survivorship. Astrid.
Thanks, Ian. Hopefully you all can hear me. Great. Hello, my name is Astrid de la Cruz. I am a registered dietitian and nutrition services manager at Project Angel Heart. I joined the team at Project Angel Heart just this past year. Just a little quick background about me. I grew up in Wisconsin, earned my nutrition and dietetics degree from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, then moved to Colorado and completed my dietetic internship, became certified as a registered dietitian, and now I'm at Project Angel Heart. I'm super passionate about serving vulnerable and underrepresented communities by advocating for nutrition education and access to nourishing food. So I'm really happy to be here. Next slide, please. So a little bit about Project Angel Heart. Project Angel Heart is a nonprofit that was founded in 1991 that provides medically tailored meals to individuals living with severe illness and side effects from treatment, from mobility issues, and other secondary issues. These services are completely free of charge for our clients, and we serve people of all ages and income status with diseases like cancer, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, heart failure, and end-stage renal disease, just as some examples. Currently, about 17% of our clients are living with cancer, but on average, our clients are living with more than 7 co-occurring illnesses at the same time. Next slide, please. So these are our delivery boundaries. We currently serve the Denver metro area, Boulder, Colorado Springs, and are also currently expanding to Pueblo in the southern part of the state. Because the Pueblo expansion is happening really literally right now, we don't have an updated map yet to include Pueblo. And through our healthcare contract partnerships with hospitals, for example, we are also able to reach more rural locations by sending overnight packages of medically tailored food to help serve these underserved areas. So just to give you a little bit of an idea of our scope, last fiscal year, we served over 550,000 meals to more than 4,000 clients. This is the largest amount of meals to the largest amount of clients that we have ever served. And in total, this next fiscal year, we will serve 600,000 meals to more than 4,050 people. Next slide, please. So we understand what an incredibly devastating diagnosis cancer can be. So I'm going to start by talking a bit about the effects of nutrition on cancer prevention and management during and after cancer treatments. So unfortunately, 1 in 5 cancer diagnoses are related to modifiable risk factors. These are aspects of our lives or our patients' lives that we can actually change and have an impact on. So these are things like the food that we eat, our physical activity, our weight, and how much alcohol we drink, for example. These modifiable factors raise a person's risk of getting cancer because of the way that they impact our immune system, our levels of inflammation, our hormones, and other cell growth factors. Next slide. So all this to say that diet plays a very important role in cancer risk reduction. We do have the ability to contribute to cancer prevention through physical activity and our food choices, and it's important that those choices promote healthy cells. So phytochemicals and antioxidants, fiber, omega-3s, and other anti-inflammatory compounds, as well as adequate levels of essential vitamins and minerals, have all been correlated with a decreased risk for cancer. Next slide. So from a real food perspective, this looks like consuming a diet rich in vegetables and fruits, fats from unsaturated sources like olive oil, avocado, fatty fish, nuts and seeds, for example, to help improve inflammation levels, complex carbohydrates like whole grains, beans, legumes to provide fiber for a healthy GI tract, and a variety of B vitamins important for metabolism. And finally, lean protein to help maintain muscle mass, which results in a healthier weight and aids in immune function and tissue repair. Next slide. So there are also some things that we can limit or avoid to further decrease our cancer risk. Some examples are limiting red meat and processed meat, limiting salt to around 1 teaspoon or less per day, drinking alcohol in moderation, and limiting added sugars and saturated fats. Next slide. So aside from nutrition for cancer prevention, we also have to examine the importance of nutrition during cancer. So people living with cancer are at a much higher nutritional risk, and it's really important that early and aggressive nutrition management is viewed really as an integral part of cancer treatment. So cancer itself and many types of treatment can actually increase a person's calorie and protein needs. But this is very difficult to achieve given the storm of side effects and all the other factors that are affecting people living with cancer. So about 50% of people going through cancer treatment experience things like loss of appetite, taste changes, nausea and vomiting, and severe fatigue, which, as you can imagine, makes eating a chore. And oftentimes what they are able to eat is not absorbed or utilized as efficiently as it would be otherwise. Next slide. So like I mentioned before, a decreased appetite is a concern, but I just wanted to quickly emphasize the importance of nutrition before and during cancer treatment, because studies have shown that nearly 85% of people living with cancer are actually malnourished. So this causes these individuals to have impaired responses to chemo treatment, decreased overall quality of life, shorter survival, longer and more expensive hospital stays, all things that can be improved with appropriate nutrition. So there are definitely ways to navigate these side effects and make them more manageable. And you can go to the next slide. So Project Angel Heart has a cancer nutrition guide that's available in English and Spanish to help navigate some of these side effects from the illnesses and from the illness itself and the treatment. So this resource has been made available to you, so I won't spend too much time going through it, but the guide will provide tips to manage side effects like loss of appetite, taste changes, changes in bowel movements, mouth sores, dry mouth, weight loss, and fatigue. So just to touch a little bit on ostomy management, ostomies and ostomy management is also a common challenge for people living with cancer. Colorectal and bladder cancer are the most common causes. Project Angel Heart has a bland, unseasoned, and GI-friendly diet that removes strongly flavored ingredients with strong odors like eggs, onions, garlic, etc. So all of these things can be problematic for clients with ostomies, as well as removing other ingredients like legumes, dairy, that can commonly lead to flatulence and other complications. I did add some resources there too. Next slide, please. And just to touch a little bit on palliative care, which is not treatment for cancer itself, but part of a comprehensive treatment plan focused on improving the quality of life. Project Angel Heart serves clients in hospice and clients who receive palliative care, and our meals remove that barrier of having access to nourishing food and improving quality of life, no matter the stage of care that a client is receiving. Next slide, please. So some final recommendations, just focusing on fruits, whole grains, vegetables, unsaturated fats, and integrating medically tailored home delivered meals into healthcare delivery and payment models. Next slide. So I just wanted to end with eligibility for a program. So who can qualify? Anyone with a severe illness. Our organization is not income or age restricted. What do services look like? We send out 7 entrees plus sides. We also offer nutrition education with me in the form of individual counseling sessions and classes. We currently deliver in the Denver Metro, Colorado Springs, Boulder, and Pueblo areas. Deliveries are made weekly by volunteers. And how do you apply? So healthcare providers will complete an application. The application is also available online on our website. A completed application can also be faxed to us. You can also reach out to me or the client services team if you have questions or need support with the application process. And last slide, please. So thank you very much. I just wanted to leave you with my contact information. I am the best person to reach out with nutrition or diet specific questions. And then I also included our client services number to who you will want to contact with questions about application, eligibility, etc. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Astrid. I am now going to turn it over to Inka Deku to facilitate a discussion with our experts from Safe and Abundant Nutrition Alliance, or SANA, and the Grand River Meals on Wheels. Inka.
Thanks, Ian. Good morning, everyone, or it's afternoon, and it's lunchtime, so we all must be hungry. But Astrid, I just wanted to say thank you very much for that wonderful presentation. Some of the feedback that we got from our first webinar was really getting a stronger connection between nutrition and cancer. And so thank you for giving some basic information on that relationship. And I just have a strong admiration for Project Angel Heart and the work that you do for Coloradans across the state. So I'm just really excited about this webinar. We reached out to our community partners because we really felt like to get an understanding of food access in rural settings, it really should be coming from the voices of those that are in those communities and are serving their community members to food access. So we'll have two short presentations from Brenda on SANA and Karen on Meals on Wheels. And then we'll go into a structured Q&A discussion on a few questions that I have come up with. But please write in the chat any questions that you have for Astrid, as well as our panelists, as we go through our discussion. We should have some time to have additional questions. So I will let Brenda come on camera and take it away.
Thank you, Inka, and thank you everyone else for being here today, and to the people that will watch this later on, this recording later on. Thank you for also taking the time to watch it. SANA is the Safe and Abundant Nutrition Alliance. This alliance was formed in 2019. It came from a partnership between 3 counties. It's Garfield County, Pitkin County, and also Eagle County, although we specifically work with the Western Eagle area of Aljabel and Basalt. So for context, so Aspen to Parachute area. And if you want to go to the next slide, we focus on the system change of community participation, so community engagement. We gather our data from them in the way of stories and anecdotal to create systems change for our community. And here is our mission, and that will be in the recording. You can pause and read all about it, but basically that's it. We want our communities to thrive in a healthy way, and so that's what we're working towards. If you want to go to the next slide. Thank you. So back in 2020, early on, before we knew that COVID was going to rock our world, we started conducting interviews. And so we interviewed people from Eagle, people from Garfield County, and people from Pitkin County. And you see the numbers there, about 29% from Eagle and Pitkin County, and almost 42% from Garfield County. And so we would do that one-on-one or focus groups, and then the pandemic hit. We got involved very early on in the coalition or the alliance. The food banks were involved in that conversation. So we got involved in doing the mobile distributions of food distributions. And so we had community members calling us and asking for help, and then also wanting to give feedback about how those distributions were going, but also just feedback about why they hadn't accessed to those pantries before, because pantries have existed for a long time in this area. But people, well, so 11 barriers were identified during the interviews, and we are currently working on 4 of those barriers, which is awareness in the way of marketing, and then also to remove stigma. Also, delivery and transportation was a very big barrier for a lot of our community members. That's what came up from the interviews. So we're working on delivery and transportation of healthy foods or foods, and also helping people sign up for SNAP, WIC, and other programs. And then also helping improvement of food distributions. So if you want to go to the next slide. So from those interviews, this was a big part of the interview was what are the foods that are culturally relevant to you? What are the foods that you need in your pantry to be able to cook healthy, nutritious foods for your families? And so fresh fruits and vegetables is always at the top. But even just basic ingredients like eggs and meats and well, I just said basic, but meats, eggs, milk, cheese, and some canned food was okay. For instance, some canned chickpeas or canned beans were okay, but not like things that they just were not accustomed to, like pork in a can. They just weren't going to use that, right? And they didn't know how to use it. So also from those interviews, we have started to create recipes and on your Facebook page, on our Facebook page, I'm sorry. We have posted recipes with some of the ingredients that come from the food bank. We have created partnerships with a local farm so that folks can get involved in that, and then also learn how food is grown, and then purchase at a really, affordable rate. And so we're working on other projects, such as getting our community connected with 4-H or the extension office, where they can help them learn how to can and preserve foods during those times. Right now, we're not growing anything. Yes, if you would like to go to the next slide. And so these were the barriers that came up from that. And I'm sorry if I jumped ahead, but these were the barriers that I spoke about earlier, the 11 barriers that came up from those interviews that we conducted to over 300 people. And so it wasn't just me interviewing people, right? Judith Alvarez and then Soira Ceja were also hired to be community engagement coordinators during this time. And they're on the call also. So language, transportation, being the stigma, so of not being able to provide for your family, so feeling shame. The requirements, they were confused. Is this gonna hurt my immigration status later on when I try, immigration status issues. And then also not feeling welcome. And I think that has to do with language also. So if you would like to move on to the next. So this is what we're rooted in. We're rooted in, our work is in equity. And so providing people what they need to live a healthy life. And so we've also been working with the food banks to provide, if it's a bigger family, that they might need a little extra food. If it's a smaller family, that they, that they get what they need to thrive and be okay. And then the next slides, I think, are just pictures. Oh, this is our campaign coming up. So it's being launched in March. We will be working on this campaign that hunger doesn't have to be a secret. And so we want to continue to talk about it. We want to continue to talk so that people know that there is a way to get food, healthy, nutritious foods, and that they're not ashamed. And so that's our campaign, and there will be a raise sometime in the spring here in the Glenwood Springs area. We will provide Inka and Ian with the information so that anybody on this call can call or can come join us for the raise. And then the next slide, please. So these are some of the from the community members that we interviewed. They wanted to be a part of the solution. They wanted to join in and help. And so those mobile distributions would not still be happening if it wasn't for the help of community members. So we have 4 distributions that Sana manages with volunteers. And so these are some of the volunteers that show up. And I think there might be another picture, maybe. Yeah. Yeah, so that's it for my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brenda. You touched on so many points. I was jotting notes as we get into the Q&A portion of it. Equity, community-led, listening to the members of the community of what their barriers are, and we'll go into more detail on that. So just a fantastic organization, and I'm just excited for the work that you're doing with Soira and Hudith, who are also on this call. The 3 of you are doing amazing work, so thank you. Sit tight, you're not off the hook yet. We're gonna have Karen speak from Grand River Health in Rifle, Colorado on their Meals on Wheels program. Another fabulous program serving seniors with meal delivery service. So Karen, take it away.
Thank you for having me. Is my volume good? Okay. I too am from Wisconsin, and I came here via Oregon and Texas. And right now I've been working for the last 15 years for Grand River Health in working with their Meals on Wheels program. They've been doing their Meals on Wheels program now for 46 years, and it has grown to a place where our medical staff will make referrals to us to help in the recovery of certain individuals. Next slide, please. Our client base has grown since COVID, and it really has grown in the last 15 years. Right now, we deliver about 2,000 meals a month. And that may not sound like a lot. However, in order to do that, we drive over 200 miles a day on 6 different routes. Everything is free, but we do ask for donations, and probably about 30% of our clients will donate on a regular basis, which is a great help. Part of having this program work is having amazing volunteers, because we rely on them to be the wheels. They're the ones that are out there hitting the road and driving on the mountain passes. Sometimes they will fall off the road and we have to send out a tow truck because they've actually slid off into a ditch. So it is kind of an adventuresome place to volunteer. Next slide, please. As you can see, our meals have increased. And since 2005, it's almost been a 500% increase. We include with our meals a pet food program called Portions for Pets, because we feel that everyone needs their own food and we don't want our clients sharing their food with their pets, which often will happen. Next slide, please. A lot of our extra programs are designed to help people with their food anxiety, especially in the winter. And so we do blizzard bags, which have 48 hours of shelf-stable food. We ask them to actually put it up on a shelf and not use it unless a storm comes along and they are feeling anxious about getting out or anxious about getting their food. A lot of these extra programs are run by little grants. A $1,500 grant can provide 100 blizzard bags, which is a great thing. Next slide, please. We also do birthday bags and Portions for Pets, and it will break your heart when you get these phone calls from people saying that this is the only birthday present I've gotten in 5 years, or things like that. And for the Portions for Pets, we actually kind of take orders. We have one client that insists on 9 lives cat food, and so we can do that for them. And again, all that is from little grants that we get along the way. Next slide. During the pandemic, the number of our clients have increased quite a bit. We deliver Monday through Friday, almost every day of the year. We take 6 holidays off, but it does take a huge team to pull this off. And this is just a portion of the team, those that showed up for the picture. Again, this is kind of a bare bones overall thing to show what we do out in Western Garfield County. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Fantastic. So I have a few questions for the both of you. And again, to the members of listening to this webinar, please chime in, either raise your hand or type it in the chat. But we've really brought Sana and Meals on Wheels to the Cancer Coalition, because one of the things from our last webinar was resources. How can I provide resources to my clients with cancer, just diagnosed or in survivorship, to nutrition resources? And so these are 2 examples in a rural part of the state. You know, they may not be in your part, but again, trying to think about who could you outreach on types like this, a coalition that brings together food pantries like Sana, getting that information out, or an existing program like Meals on Wheels. Karen did share there is a website that you can type in to find if there's a Meals on Wheels in your community. And so this is sort of providing your client with that extra level of nutrition that they need if they're not able to cook for themselves, or they have barriers to food access. So that is my first question, and I will have Brenda answer this question first. But how do you describe food access in your own words, and as well as what does it look like in your organization? And I know you touched upon it in your presentation, but sort of bringing it back again.
Yes, and also I would like to share a resource. And Inka, I don't know, or Ian, if you can help me put it in the chat, the spreadsheet. Yes, thank you. It is a list of all of the food sites, whether it be a food pantry, mobile or fixed, or a extended table, which is a hot meal. And so it's a list of all of those resources from Aspen to Parachute, and including some of Eastern Eagle places like Eagle and Dotsero, those places. So food access is to know that there is a place you can go where you will feel welcome and you won't be judged and someone will speak your language. I think those are some of the most important aspects to having food access. It's or picking up the phone and saying, I'm homebound, I can't go, but I need some food, and knowing that somebody can help you deliver to you. Those interviews that we conducted also helped us realize that some of the foods that people knew about the food banks, but some of the foods that they were giving out, like too much canned food, just was not what they wanted. And it wasn't, they know that it's not super healthy and it's high in sodium. And so through that engagement with the community, the food banks have tried to offer more fruits and vegetables, free of fresh fruits and vegetables, through this initiative with the farm to pantry. So they have done planning with the farms, the local farms, or as local as you can get. And then they purchase their fruits and vegetables from local places and they bring them to the distributions. So that's what it means to me to know that there is a way.
Great, Brenda. And again, you touched on that culture piece, and we all have our own idea about food access. And, you know, the charitable food system, you think of people donating leftover cans that they have in their cupboards or boxed items, which are great, you know, but also taking it to the next level of, you know, those fresh fruits and vegetables, getting access to the more expensive items like meat, cheese, dairy. And so, you know, having access to those foods when you don't have enough money. Karen, I will ask you the same. How do you define food access and what does it look like in your organization?
Okay, well, so our clients are homebound. They may be seniors, they may be disabled, they may be hospice, immunocompromised, all of those groups. But on top of that, with our groups, a lot of it is these people are not only homebound, but they may not be able to make the food themselves due to arthritis or due to they can't stand anymore at a counter and cut and actually cook the food. We recently had a cancer patient who was going through some extreme vertigo, and she was just like at her wit's end because she could barely get to the door. So, you know, part of it is making the meals easy. You just open and eat. You know, for this particular client group, we also have a unique phenomenon because we're rural. If the wife and husband and wife, say we have some in their 80s and 90s, and the wife has always cooked, and the husband's out on the ranch dealing with the cattle, whatever, and he's clueless in the kitchen, and the wife dies. Well, so then we have this older fellow that just has no idea how to cook, and he's got a little bit of a block on how to learn to cook at this age. And again, it's some unique situations that we face with people who are rural and in having a hard time actually creating a meal.
Absolutely, Karen. And so we're also just breaking down those conceptions in our mind that, you know, cooking is easy for all of us or access is easy for all of us. It's not. And, you know, we have systemic barriers to accessing food, whether it be money, whether it be knowledge of what is healthy, or having the tools or being physically capable. So great responses, Karen and Brenda. I think that's my next question. You both touched on barriers, you know, physical barriers, types of food barriers. What are some things you can share with the group to start breaking down those barriers to support your organizations? I'll have
Well-
Karen go first.
Okay, yeah. I think, the first one is low income. So by making it free, it's great. And to not make them think like they have to make a donation. But then also if they do make $1 or $5 donation, to really be thankful to them. We also have an independent streak in rural areas, and a lot of people are, I don't want a handout. I want, I want to do this myself. And so for those people, to allow them to give a little, so that they don't feel like it is a handout. Transportation is a huge problem. I mean, obviously, if they're homebound, we don't have a bus system out here. We don't have what might be available in a city to get people to a grocery store or even to a food pantry like Brenda was talking about. And then I think the lack of support groups. I mean, some of the people who live in rural Colorado around here are 5th and 6th generation Coloradans, and they have a good support group. But people who have moved in recently, which is probably half the population or more, they don't necessarily have the same support groups. So I think all of those things are barriers for food access.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Brenda?
I agree. Yes, Karen and I are, we would say neighboring towns almost, but it's still like, 25 miles to get to. So definitely transportation is a huge barrier for families. If, for example, if you live in Silt, there's no grocery store in Silt. So how do you get to the nearest grocery store? And so transportation is huge. In, like I said, language barrier, also the quality of the food. So like I mentioned before, I feel like I'm maybe missing your question. Can you,
No, you spoke, Brenda, a lot about the barriers by surveying the community, getting those those interviews, learning about what it is rather than assumptions. I think, we can make a lot of assumptions about what food access means. And so really kind of drilling down. And from what I am so impressed with Sana is that you're focusing on 4 specific projects because it's so big. There's so many reasons to food access, and what is in our control, what are we able to do? And I love your approach about community focused, community led, and digging deeper into those 4 areas. And then Karen, your organization is just, it's been around for so long, and it's more people are accessing it. And that's great, because people are accessing it. Hopefully they're not feeling stigmatized, but also, what's going on, the root issue is that we need more programs like this. So both of you spoke to barriers, and bringing this attention to the members of the coalition, that asking these questions with some of their clients and their patients about food specifically. Sometimes we're afraid to because we don't know where to help them or where the resources are. And so
Right.
there are a lot of resources, and so it's making those connections. Go ahead, Brenda.
Yes, I am so sorry.
No.
Another big barrier is housing. That people have to pay the rent first before they do anything else, and usually food is at the bottom of the list. And so if they can have access to some of the foods that they can use during the week, that gives them a little bit more room to breathe, right? So I feel like it's the stigma that was before, that was maybe like a handout. We are trying to, get our community to understand, look, if you can sign up your son or daughter for soccer, and because you got some food from the food bank, that is a win, because your daughter will be better off for it, right? Or your son. And so I feel like we are getting all of this feedback from the community, and we are we want them to see the benefit of accessing these programs.
So time just flies. I'm looking at the clock, and so I just want to be mindful. I have two more questions. I think I'll ask the last question, but just sort of tie it back to cancer and sort of people newly diagnosed or have been going through therapy, chemotherapy, or they're in survivorship, that whole spectrum, that these are some resources in the community that they could tap into if they need that additional nutrition. So final question, also more of a statement from you both of what resources do you have available for the coalition? And then maybe Ian can also share kind of where you can find them. And this is not the last. If you need to reach out to Brenda or Karen, they have their email addresses available. So yeah, just kind of to tie things up, what resources do you have for the group?
Well, I think that because probably about 15% of our clients are cancer patients. Some of those are young. And so you usually think of, oh, Meals on Wheels, you have to be 70 or older. And that's not the case. Everyone has their own story. So we might have a 30-year-old who has cancer on our route or a 50-year-old. And I think because we go to their home every day with a medically designed meal, we're not only providing a meal, but we're providing a safety check and just a smile and a friendly 5-minute chat, which I think also helps the healing process. So I'll just kind of leave it with that.
And I believe that fresh fruits and vegetables and healthy meals or healthy foods can help heal not just the disease, but also the soul. And having the community members serve their own community, I think that it's always great to see your neighbor, your family member be the one that is helping one another.
Well, thank you to you both. I see Dee as well, who works with Karen, and Soira and Hudith on this call. So if you feel comfortable taking yourself off camera, this is a team effort. So thank you so much. And Astrid as well, providing information from Project Angel Heart and the nutrition piece to it. So I will hand it over to Ian to wrap it up. But thank you so much for being here and learning and getting those resources available for your clients and your patients.
Thanks, Inka, for facilitating. That was just a lot of great information. It's really amazing to hear what our local Colorado partners are doing to help reduce the barrier to nutritious food for people. Okay, we mentioned resources a few times. We were waiting until after the webinar to be able to provide those to attendees in case other resources came up during this discussion that you all were hoping to learn about or get. So if you do have a resource that you're hoping to see or come out of this webinar, throw it in the chat and we will see if we can get a resource or something to address that. You've seen the link for our evaluation. I'm going to put it back in here. If you could just take probably about a minute to let us know how we did in this webinar. We used the feedback from our first webinar to make changes and make this a more useful learning experience for folks. So we do look at those and adjust how we present. So I want to pause for just 1 second to make sure that we're not or not skipping over any resources that you were hoping to gain from this, to put in the chat. Again, this is the second webinar of the series. The first one was on urban food access. This one was on rural. The next two, which are, we do not have dates set yet, will be covering built environment and how that impacts cancer screening and prevention and treatment, both in the urban and rural settings. So please be on the lookout for those registrations when they become available. And I think that is it for today. So again, thank you to all our panelists, Brenda, Karen, Astrid, and then the behind the scenes folks with Udith and Soira, and the team that helped to bring this together, the Colorectal Cancer Task Force and the Palliative and Survivorship Task Force, Palliative Care and Survivorship Task Force of the Cancer Coalition. Thank you all and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you all.